The final verdict arrived on a wave of light. It washed over 1 billion screens across your home world. The Hall of Judgment was silent, achingly so. Every being from 1,000 worlds watched you. They watched your ambassador, a woman of iron and grace. She stood alone before the Concordate Council. Her face was a mask of calm defiance. The chief adjudicator spoke. His voice was like grinding stone. It carried no pity, no room for doubt. On the charge of galactic vandalism, he began. On the charge of cultural annihilation, he continued. We, the Concordate, find humanity guilty. The word echoed in the vast chamber. It echoed in your heart. Your ambassador did not speak. She did not need to. Her silence was louder than any plea. It was a scream of injustice in a vacuum. 1 billion worlds saw her close her eyes. They saw her accept a fate you did not earn. The frame was built. The hammer had fallen. Your entire civilization was now a criminal. They showed the evidence one last time. The Althean beacon shattered. Its star-born energies were torn asunder. The data was perfect. The weapon signatures were yours. Every flicker, every energy trace screamed human tech. It was the most elaborate, perfect frame job in history. And you had no way to disprove it. Your sentence was announced without ceremony. It was a cold, calculated decision. The Concordate would not dirty their hands with war. They would not glass your cities from orbit. Their judgment was more profound and far crueler. They would extinguish your sun. Your star, the heart of your system, would be snuffed out. They called it a stellar quench, a targeted application of immense gravitational force. It would fold your sun in on itself. A slow, agonizing death for a star. A slow, chilling end for a people. You were given one cycle, one of your years to say goodbye. Goodbye to your worlds, your art, your future. The Concordate Armada appeared at the edge of your system, a ring of silent, watching judges. They were there to enforce the sentence. They were there to watch a species die. Panic did not erupt on your worlds. Instead, a deep, collective sorrow settled in, a quiet grief for everything you were about to lose. You looked up at your sky. The sun seemed warmer, more precious. Its light felt like a ticking clock. Every sunrise was one less you would ever see. The galaxy had condemned you to the cold. A long, dark night awaited your entire species, and the clock was already ticking down. Not everyone accepted this quiet end. In the deep black, beyond the Concordate's watch, a plan was born. It was a whisper of defiance, a last desperate gamble. Your leaders sanctioned it in secret. A single ghost ship was prepared for an impossible mission. You called it the Unbroken Vow. The crew was small, the best you had. Experts in fields no one should ever need. A data ghost who could walk through firewalls. A star science specialist who could read nebula like books. A pilot who could dance between raindrops in a hurricane. And a commander who refused to let hope die. Their mission was unsanctioned, illegal, your last breath. They slipped past the Concordate blockade, a flicker in the void, too small to notice. They carried the weight of your entire species. They were not hunting for an appeal. They were not looking for mercy. They hunted for the truth, a truth buried under layers of lies. A truth that was your only way out. You traveled far from the sun's fading light. The ship was your only world now, a tiny pocket of life in an indifferent cosmos. The crew worked without rest. They chased a phantom, a signal that should not exist, a ghost in the universal machine, a single thread in a tapestry of deceit. The ship followed a whisper. It was a signal buried in the background radiation of space. A faint, rhythmic pulse that no one else had noticed. Your instruments strained to capture it. It was like hearing a single feather fall in a starstorm. But it was there, and it was your only lead. The signal led you to a graveyard of giants. The shattered remains of the lost Althea beacon. It hung in the void, like a broken promise. Huge, crystalline structures drifted aimlessly. Their inner light was extinguished. The Concordat had declared the area a memorial, a tomb no one was allowed to visit. You navigated the debris field with care. Each fragment was a piece of the puzzle. The destruction was immense, far greater than reported. This was not a simple act of sabotage. This was a brutal execution. Something was very wrong here. The official story felt thin, like ice over a deep ocean. Your data ghost began her work. She cast her nets into the ruined systems. She searched for echoes, for data ghosts left behind. You watched the fragments drift past your viewport. A civilization's greatest work reduced to rubble, and you were blamed for it. The injustice fueled your resolve. It burned hotter than any star. The data ghost found something. It was a partial log from a maintenance drone. It had recorded the final moments of the beacon. You gathered around the console to watch. The recording was corrupted, but through the static, you saw the attack. Energy beams of impossible power. They sliced through the beacon's heart. The weapon's signatures were a perfect match for your fleet. Phased plasma torpedoes, quantum resonance cannons. It was all there, a textbook human assault. The Concordat's evidence was accurate. The frame was flawless. It was a video of you holding the smoking gun. It felt like a dead end. But your star science expert saw something else. He looked past the obvious signatures. He analyzed the energy decay in the debris. Human weapons left a specific radioactive half-life, a signature as unique as a fingerprint. The radiation in this debris field was different. It was subtly, fundamentally wrong. The decay rate was too clean, too stable. It was like a forgery of a masterpiece. Perfect on the surface, but a fake underneath. Someone had mimicked your technology. They had done it with terrifying precision. It was like they had your blueprints, and they had used them to sign your death warrant. Beneath the false human data, another layer existed. It was a faint, almost undetectable energy trace. A stealth field signature. One so advanced, it could almost erase itself from reality. There was only one species in the galaxy capable of such a thing. The Cathar, a race of shadowy manipulators. The Cathar were your loudest accusers in the Concordat. They had pushed for the harshest sentence. They had presented supplemental evidence of your aggression. It was all starting to make sense. They had not just framed you. They had orchestrated the entire event. Your data ghost went deeper. She used the Cathar signature as a key. She searched for anything that resonated with it. The debris field was not just a graveyard, it was a crime scene. And the murderers had been careless. They had left behind a single, damning clue. A signature they thought no one could ever find. It was a masterful cloak. But every cloak has a seam. Your team had found it. The anger on your ship was cold and sharp. You had been played. The entire galaxy had been played. The Cathar had sacrificed a galactic treasure, all to remove you from the board. But why? The question hung heavy in the recycled air of your ship. Deep within the wreckage, you found a data vault. It had survived the initial blast. Its outer casing was scorched and broken. But its core memory was intact. The Cathar had missed it. a tiny oversight that would unravel their entire plan. This must have been a real headache for them. The vault was sealed with an ancient, complex code. It was a lockmaker's masterpiece. Your data ghost smiled. She saw it not as a barrier, but as a challenge, a puzzle box waiting to be opened. She spent days working on it. The ship was silent, save for the soft clicks of her console. Finally, she broke through. The vault opened. The data flowed onto your screens. It was not engineering specs for the beacon. It was not a star chart. It was a history, a secret history, a warning from the builders of the beacons, a truth so dangerous it had been buried for eons. The text scrolled by. It spoke of the beacons as cages, not keys. It described the current method of star travel as a limitation, a carefully constructed wall around the galaxy. The beacons did not enable travel. They controlled it. They kept every species confined to a single galactic plane, like a cosmic fishbowl. You had always known there were limits to star drives. Certain regions of space were impassable. Certain star types disrupted navigation. You called them void zones. Your star science called it a natural law. But it was not law. It was a fence. And the beacons were the fence posts. The builders had feared something. Something outside the known galaxy, something so terrible they had locked everyone inside. They built a beautiful, glittering cage, and they gave the keys to a few chosen wardens, the Concordat's founding races, including, of course, the Cathar. The Cathar were not just manipulators. They were jailers. They had maintained this galactic prison for millennia. They knew the truth of star travel. They understood the physics you were never meant to learn. And the Althean beacon was special. It was the master lock, the one part of the system that could undo the rest. Humanity had been getting too close to the truth. Your scientists were asking the wrong questions. Your ships were pushing the boundaries. You were tapping on the walls of the fishbowl. So the Cathar arranged an accident. They destroyed the lock, and they handed you the blame. A perfect way to remove the curious species and reinforce their own power. You now held two truths in your hands. One was proof of your innocence. The Cathar, stealth signature, the data from the vault. It would exonerate you completely. You could broadcast it to the Concordat. You could clear your name. The Armada would leave your system. Your son would be safe. But you also held a second, much bigger truth. The key to breaking the galactic cage. The data vault contained the physics of true star travel, the equations to bypass the beacon network entirely. You could give every species the freedom to travel anywhere, to go beyond the wall, to see what was truly out there. The choice was agonizing. To plead for your life, or to shatter the foundations of the galaxy. If you revealed the Cathar betrayal, you would be saved. But the prison would remain. The old powers would stay in control. They would simply find a new way to maintain order. A new lie to tell. If you broadcast the master key, the new physics, everything would change. The Concordat's power would crumble. The Cathar would be exposed as liars and jailers. But it would also be an act of galactic rebellion. You would be unleashing a terrible, unknown freedom upon 1,000 worlds. You would be opening a door without knowing what was on the other side. The decision was made under the fading light of your star. On the bridge of the unbroken vow, you held a council. Every member of the crew had a voice. You looked at the live feed from your home world. You saw the faces of your people. They were waiting for a miracle. They did not know you were debating the fate of the galaxy. You would not plead. You would not beg for scraps from your accuser's table. You were not criminals asking for a pardon. You were pioneers. You would not ask for freedom. You would broadcast it. To every ship, every station, every world. You would give them all the key. The plan was simple and completely insane. You would turn your own ship into a beacon. You would use your drive core as a transmitter. You would broadcast the lockmaker's ancient code, a symphony of pure physics that would rewrite the rules of star travel. It would probably also tear your ship apart, a small price to pay for everything. Your engineer began the work. He rerouted power conduits. He bypassed safety protocols. He turned a starship engine into a galactic megaphone. He hummed while he worked, a quiet, cheerful tune in the face of oblivion. He said it was the most fun he'd had all cycle. You decided not to question his sanity. The Concordate Armada detected your power surge. They had been watching you, of course. Their silent vigil was a mask for paranoia. A single ghost ship could not be a threat. But they were not taking any chances. Their fleet turned, 100 warships moving as one. They came to silence you forever. Their final warning was a simple text transmission. Cease your illegal power build-up. Surrender your vessel. Your sentence is unchanged. You sent a simple reply. You should probably take a step back. It was possible they did not appreciate the humor. Their weapon ports opened. Your ship was not a warship. You had no chance in a direct fight. But you did not need to fight. You just needed to survive for a few more minutes. The pilot grinned. It was a wild, dangerous smile. He was about to dance in a hurricane again. He pushed the engines to their absolute limit. You became the new signal, the heart of a message that would change everything. The core of your ship began to glow, a brilliant, impossible blue. Power surged through the vessel. The deck plates hummed with energy. You were no longer just a ship. You were becoming the first true beacon, one built on truth, not control. The engineer gave you a thumbs up. Every system was green, or at least a color close enough to green. The data ghost had formatted the code into a broadcast wave. The commander gave the final order. Let's show them how to really fly. The pilot targeted the entire galaxy. The broadcast was not sound. It was not light. It was a wave of pure physics, a resonance that vibrated in the very fabric of space-time. It hit the Concordate fleet first. Their engines flickered. Their navigation systems went haywire. The fundamental principles of their star drives were being rewritten in real time. Every starship drive in the galaxy felt the wave, from the smallest freighter to the largest dreadnought. The symphony washed over them. It was a language they instantly understood. The limitations they had always known, the void zones, the travel corridors, they simply vanished. The equations in their computers updated themselves. A new map of the universe appeared on their screens. It was vast, open, and terrifying. The walls of the cage had dissolved. The old ways were dying. The comfortable lies were gone. You had not just proven your innocence. You had made the old court obsolete. The Cathar fleet was the first to fall silent. Their advanced drives were intricately tied to the beacon network. When the network's logic was undone, their engines failed completely. One by one, their warships went dark, drifting, powerless husks. Their cloak of lies was gone. And now, so was their power. The Concordate ships did not know what to do. Their orders were to stop you. But their own ships now operated on the physics you had broadcast. They were using your gift to try and silence you. The irony was probably lost on them. They were too busy rebooting their navigation computers. Your own ship began to tear itself apart. The core could not handle the strain. But the message was out. The symphony had been played. Your final act was complete. You watched the star charts of 1,000 species rewrite themselves. The frame built on lies could no longer hold. A new dawn arrived for the galaxy. It was a dawn of terrible, brilliant freedom. You had given them the truth. A truth that was dangerous. A truth that came with no instruction manual. The ancient fear of the beacon builders might be justified. You may have just unlocked a door to a monster. But it was a choice they all had to make now. Not just the chosen few. Not just the secret keepers. Every species was now the master of its own destiny. They could hide in their old territories, or they could venture into the true, unknown void. The age of wardens was over. Your ship, the Unbroken Vow, finally gave out. It drifted in the silent space between stars, a monument to the moment everything changed. You were no longer the accused. You were no longer the condemned. You were the architects of a new age. You had not just rewritten the frame, you had shattered it for everyone.